I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay my respect to elders both past and present and the elders here today. My name's Elise Maehler and I'm an intern that's been working in Campbelltown Hospital this year. I've been asked to come and share my experiences of living, studying and now working in southwest Sydney. You see, my relationship with Campbelltown Hospital has been very long-standing. In fact, this is really the first place I ever called home. I was born here in the new maternity ward in 1987. After this, I didn't see very much of the hospital except for the few broken bones I've had. This is until I arrived, a fresh-faced 19-year-old, for orientation at the brand new UWS School of Medicine. I still remember the feelings of excitement and terror faced with a whole hospital of patients to learn from and eventually hope to help. It was a time of change for this hospital. Suddenly the corridors were filled with lurking, awkward-looking medical students in oversized business shirts, shiny stethoscopes around their necks, all trying to find a place in the chaos around them. Once in a hospital, a medical student develops a particular skill set. The most important is stalking. You stalk consultants, you stalk registrars, anyone that will feed you a little bit of wisdom that you can't find in a textbook. In learning this, a student must learn to differentiate between when a consultant is walking to the bathroom or seeing a patient. This lesson is often learned with a pivot, a terse look and a growl of "I'm going to the toilet, go away, medical student." Being a medical student leaves your memory etched with memories you'd wish you'd forget. Walking up to registrars head down, embarrassed to admit that you'd missed the vein again. Eagerly talking to a patient about their medical condition of which you've never heard anything about. You have no idea what they're saying. You smile and nod, and then quickly Google the answer before you get grilled by a real doctor and exposed to fraud. Eventually, and ever so slowly, a young medical student is absorbed into the culture of a hospital. By the time a new intern is born, lurking in the corridors is replaced by purpose and belonging. You learn how to keep the cogs turning in a hospital. As a medical student, you realise you've got a gift, the gift of time which no one else in the hospital can offer. And this is where you learn that in medicine, it's not the drugs that were given or the operation that's performed that shapes a patient's experience. Rather, it's the quality of the connections that a patient experiences with their clinician, whether it be a nurse, allied health worker, or a doctor. In southwest Sydney, one of the most diverse communities imaginable, it can be often very difficult to make connections with a patient. Most have lived very different lives to you, have different experiences, and face disadvantage when, even if you've lived in the community all your life, like me, you don't understand. I think it's the diversity of the community which I think passes unnoticed. My real realisation of this came during a community placement where a senior member of an organisation came up to me and said, "How on earth did you manage to make it into medical school when you grew up in Campbelltown? How did you get to university? Was there much gang violence? Drugs? Were your friends on drugs? Did your parents have jobs? It must have been such a struggle." The sad thing is that I get this reaction from a lot of people, from many different places. Where do you live? Campbelltown. Oh. Campbelltown Hospital is an amazing place to study and work, for so many reasons. It's a friendly place with good morale. It's a place where people say hello to each other in corridors. It's where the consultants are approachable and it's a pleasure to come to work each day. It's also amazing because of the community it serves. Through my studies here, I got exposure to community beyond the doors of the hospital. I spent time at Thurrowa Aboriginal Medical Service, a month at Odyssey House Drug and Alcohol Rehabilitation. I've played bingo with Carrington Nursing Home residents, and I've been on home visits with Brighter Futures and seen families with disadvantage beyond what I could have imagined. In all of these places and services, I've been privileged to the most personal stories and secrets of many, many different people. I've met children who couldn't attend school because their parents ran out of money that day. I've heard stories of an orphan boy who found a life of gangs and drugs because it was the closest thing to family he'd experienced. I've met elderly widows meeting their husbands at dance parties in war-torn Europe who eventually settled to Campbelltown. It's exposure to these people and their stories which has been the most inspiring to begin my medical career in Campbelltown. Every patient I meet and every story I hear opens my eyes to different perspectives, to the reasons behind people's different values and health behaviours. This has taught me more than a textbook can ever. And now, almost a year into working at Campbelltown as an intern, I've been able to use these experiences to help people, as I'd hoped to do all those years ago. For me, the highlight of my year of work was my first mention in a funeral pamphlet. Yes, a funeral pamphlet, first name and last name, Dr. Elise Maehler. It was this point that I realised that I'd actually been able to help someone and their family in a very real and important way. In the midst of my running around, frantically clutching a crumpled list and a pen, attempting to multitask, which despite my gender does not come easily for me, I'd made enough of an impact to be thanked in a funeral pamphlet. Running a very close second to this was the opportunity to look after my favourite primary school teacher. It was a most humbling experience to have her grab my hand and ask me if she'd be okay. Internship has been a challenge, and there are days when it can be a struggle to cope with high patient loads and demands, when you can't make your friends' dinner plans once again. But the good moments, like I've mentioned, and the warm, friendly hospital community have made it a great experience which I'd recommend to anyone. Living, studying, and now working in Campbelltown has given me a wealth of experience and stories to tell. It is a community which makes me excited to continue working with and living within, and I can't wait, particularly with the expansion of the hospital, to see where my journey takes me next. Thank you.